I have a little, I'm finna put this thing on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
Say your name and count to 10 for me.
Ron Crowder. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And I had my telephone off on. Okay. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville, a longtime fighter of HIV and AIDS in Nashville, Mr. Ron Crowder. And many of you might recall that Mr. Crowder has been with us not only on many other shows, but he also is the founder of a very, very important anti-HIV AIDS organization called Steet-works. And Mr. Crowder, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to have you and to tell you how glad we are to have you in this seat, because it's been quite a number of months since we've had a good HIV AIDS show. And some folks are saying that HIV and AIDS might be disappearing or whatever. So let's talk about first about you and your background, and then by perhaps the second segment we'll get into the status of AIDS. But more than anything, let's talk about Ron Crowder first.
Okay, as you said, I'm Ron Crowder. I'm the founder and the CEO of Steet-works. Steet-works is a nonprofit agency that's been around for almost 20 years. We started in '97. We have 3 locations in Nashville. 2 of them are located in public housing, the Casey Homes in East Nashville and Tony Sudicum Homes in South Nashville. We do free HIV testing. We do free hepatitis C testing. We provide a multitude of direct support services for people living with HIV and people who are actively using drugs. So we work, and the name comes because we work the streets. We work the streets a lot at night to prevent new infections of HIV and hepatitis C. We work the streets to interact with people who are actively using drugs and to try to do some type of intervention with them, and if necessary, and if whenever they get ready, we help them get into treatment.
And so, Mr. Crowder, we know you, and as we said, you were one of the first HIV/AIDS persons that we recall being able to talk to about that disease, and you, since that time, not only have you grown the organization, but you've grown your influence throughout this nation in terms of what AIDS is and the status of AIDS. And what we'd like to do today is to have you to give our audience as much information as you possibly can about the status of HIV and AIDS in American society in Nashville. And then we'll dedicate ourselves to that proposition for the rest of the show.
Okay. So right now, HIV and AIDS, we can see an end to AIDS now. An end to AIDS is in sight now. There are cities, particularly New York, has a plan called End AIDS by 2020. So they actually have a plan of ending AIDS by 2020. Nashville doesn't have a plan yet, but with all of the new interventions and the new treatments, we can see HIV and AIDS ending. You know.
Well, you know, I think when you first came to us, Mr. Crowder, that was several years ago when this was a real disease and people were having all kinds of problems in reference to it. It's strange that you can now say that within the next 4 years, because I think at one time we thought that this would be something that would be with us forever and ever, but you mean that the technology and the drugs and et cetera have come to such a point that we can talk in a real sense and be serious about saying that 4 or 5 years from now we might see the last person to be afflicted with this disease.
Yeah, an end is in sight. I can't say that realistically 5 years is going to be the end of it, but we do know that the end is in sight.
That it's not forever, as we thought for at one time.
Yes. Right now, HIV is more of a chronic illness than a death sentence as it was. Like, I can't remember the first time I came on your show, but I do know that the first time I came on the show,
that was in the 90s.
Yeah, HIV was still a death sentence. If you got HIV, you was gonna die with it.
That's right.
Now they treating HIV as a chronic illness, and what they are doing is, if they can get the viral load to undetectable, then your chances of transmitting the virus is slim and none. So a person who has HIV in an undetectable viral load, their chances of transmitting it to their sexual partner is slim and none.
Okay, and so what we're going to do, we're going to take our first commercial break, and we're going to be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Yeah, I remember the first time when you came, and it was a terrible situation.
Yeah.
And it was at that time, at that particular time, but we didn't think in terms. I think, well, what has the national government done in reference to this? Because I think that at one time the government was given various administrations played a significant role in terms of.
Well, the thing is that they got the Ryan White program.
Okay, we're ready. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Ron Crowder, and he's given us some information in reference to the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville. And Mr. Crowder, I would imagine when we talk about the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville, we can generally say the same thing in reference to that if this is current in Nashville, that this is probably the same situation everywhere. That's why we wanted to approach it from that perspective.
Well, Nashville is a little unique in that, number one, we're in the South. Right now, it's approximately 21,000 people living with HIV in the city. About 200 people get infected each year. While HIV in Nashville is down by approximately 30%, and it has been over the last 4 or 5 years, we still are the 22nd city, number 22 in the United States with the highest HIV rate. And that's due to poverty, being in the South, lack of education, lack of appropriate health care. That's a lot of many reasons. Drug use. And drug use is a good segue for what I need to say now. Right now, although needle exchange is not legal in Nashville, we know that needle exchange reduce HIV rates in the injection drug use population. So Steet-works, you know, we just had to be proactive on that front. So we do provide sterile syringes for people who are actively using. While we don't condone drug use, we do know that they're going to use drugs whether they have clean needles or not. So in order to reduce HIV infection rates, we provide sterile syringes for people who are actively using, but we also offer them information and try to help them move to get into drug treatment. And we do that. Also the same thing with hepatitis C. We have probably 50 or 60% hepatitis C positivity rate in our testing.
Now, what do you mean when you say HIV and this? You've got another disease that
hepatitis C.
Hepatitis C. Now, what is that all about?
Hepatitis C is a disease that affects the liver. So people would have, like me, I had hepatitis C. The good thing about me, and I've just been blessed by the Lord, I was able to stick around, or the Lord kept me living long enough to see a medication that come through that people could tolerate. When I first came on the show, I had hepatitis C, but the only drug they had was interferon, and it was horrible. People would rather die than to take that drug, and a lot of them did. But now they have a new drug on the market that clears hepatitis C in 12 weeks. You take the pill for 12 weeks. Granted, I'm still blessed because I'm a veteran, but the pill cost, that 12-week supply of that drug cost $96,000. But because I'm a veteran, I was able to get it. And a lot of people is able to get it too.
One way or the other.
But there's still several people that drug is out of range for them. But thank God that now I'm cured of hepatitis C. A lot of my friends died with hepatitis C because they had cirrhosis of the liver. But also, the other thing is, if we can get, and people talk to me about all the time, aren't you promoting drug use? And I say, look, no, we're not promoting drug use because we give away clean syringes. They're going to use drugs anyway.
One way or the other.
Whether they have to use a sterile syringe or whether they share a syringe with somebody else, they're going to shoot the dope. And my job is to keep them healthy, long enough that I can get them the help that they need through drug treatment. And so that's why we do needle exchange. The other thing, and I was going to say, yeah, Nashville is the 22nd, number 22 in the country for HIV infection. We have approximately, I said, yeah, 21,000 people. The other thing is what's the reason we can see the end of AIDS is because they have a new intervention called PrEP, P-R-E-P, and that's pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's kind of like the morning after pill. So now people in high risk situations, and it's particularly men who have sex with men, they can take a drug called Truvada, and it will prevent them from getting HIV. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, hey, go out and have unprotected sex, or but what I am saying is that undetected viral load with PrEP, that's why we can see it now. Because people with undetectable viral load, which I am a person living with HIV and have been since the 80s, my viral load is undetectable, so the chances of me transmitting HIV to a sexual partner is slim and none. And when I say slim and none, they done studies, and there's been no seroconversion among discordant couples. That means one positive, one negative couple with undetectable viral load. And it's strange that on my way here today to do this show, they was talking about organ donation of people who are HIV positive. This is how we know HIV, the end of AIDS is near, because now HIV positive person can donate an organ. They can, not only can they donate an organ, they are now receiving organ. Before they wouldn't even give
the blood. I mean,
not the blood, but they wouldn't even give a HIV positive person an organ, because they were like, oh, he got HIV, he's gonna die anyway. Why would we give him an organ? So, man, this is really some exciting times in the HIV/AIDS world.
Okay, and so what we're going to do, we're going to take this final commercial break, Brother Crowder.
Okay.
Crowder, and then we're going to, Crowder,
I know.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to have our final segment. We'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. All of the conversations that we had with it, you used to be moaning and groaning in reference to it, and telling people this and whatever, and et cetera. And then you come in and announce today that we're moving toward within the next few years. And, I thought it was an eternal kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was.
It was then.
It was. At that time, sure was.
The only hope was to try to live as long as we could.
That's right.
But now,
Well, okay. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Ron Crowder, and he's giving us some information in reference to the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville. And I think I must say up front, Mr. Crowder, that the information that you are reporting today is very, very positive and well hoped for information, because I can remember when you came to me and dealing with the same kind of situation, and it was moaning and groaning, not only in reference to what happened in Nashville, but all over the world in a real sense. And now you're telling us that there's a possibility that we might see the end of AIDS within the next half decade or so. Go on, talk about it from that perspective.
Yeah, Dr. Haney, you're right. You're absolutely right. We're very optimistic that the end of AIDS will occur within the next 5 to 10 years. We're very optimistic. That's not to say that people still shouldn't take the same precautions as they have taken before. While the optimism is good, there is some things that I'm gonna tell you that's not so good. For example, HIV is still disproportionately affects people of color. People of color who get HIV seem to get sicker quicker, and they die sooner. Now, amongst men who have sex with men, the infection rate is out the roof. I mean, the CDC has given statistics that says 1 in 2, that's 50%, man, of men who have, particularly African American men. This is African American men, young African American men will get 1 in 2 will be infected with HIV. Now, Nashville Cares, Steet-works, and Neighborhood Health received a grant from the CDC in the amount of $3.8 million over the next 5 years to combat HIV in the young MSM, the young black MSM community. What we plan to do with that grant is to create a one-stop shop for MSMs where they can come and receive all of their services under one roof. So we are in a collaboration to make that happen. We've not yet solidified the space, but we're in negotiation. Well, Nashville Cares is in negotiation with a realtor now to secure the space. But we just started our 2nd year of this grant, and it's going well. So again, like I say, it's some exciting times now. The federal government finally got it right. Okay. And now they putting their resources to follow the epidemic. So the epidemic is the greatest need is in young black MSM. So, and that's where they're putting their money.
MSM. What do you?
Men who have sex with men.
Is that MSM? Men, that's
yes. Men who have sex with men. Now, some people think that's a derogatory term, and you know, I just left a conference in Florida, the United States Conference on AIDS, and they was using gay and that other word we used to use a long time ago. I think those words are derogatory, queer, gay, and all of that, but apparently in other cities, they think MSM is derogatory. I mean, you know,
but it's a matter of what you call it. But in a real sense, the disease itself, it has been mitigated in a real sense to such a point that it is possible to think about the end of HIV and AIDS.
We see it. It's in sight. It's really in sight.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the most encouraging things that I've heard about it. I didn't know that. You know, I think it's been a long time since we had a chance to talk to you about it. But the very thought of being able to end it, and this is not only for Nashville. We're talking about all over the world.
Absolutely.
See? And I understand it has been a tremendous problem in some parts of Africa, for example, and other parts of the world.
Yeah. Now, you know, third world countries and places like Africa and things, I'm not sure if they're going to be on land with it ending like that, but whatever happens here, I'm sure it'll eventually get there too. Because now you still have mothers breastfeeding, and you know, they just don't have the resources that we have. So, but eventually it'll get there. Nashville is doing some excellent work around prevention, around EIS, which is Early Intervention Services, finding people who are who have HIV and don't know it. So we aggressively look for those people, because probably, I don't know the percentage right off the top of my head, but most of all new infections occur amongst people who have HIV and don't know that they have it. So the key to ending HIV also lies in finding those people who are HIV positive and don't know that they're HIV positive. Also, finding the people who are HIV positive for whatever reason who has fallen through the cracks.
Okay.
So what we need to do is find all of those people, get them into treatment, get them treated where their viral load will be undetected and they won't be at risk of transmitting the virus to other people. And so that's what we're trying to do.
And then you can say that you've defeated HIV and
absolutely,
AIDS.
Absolutely.
And I tell you, this is a real optimistic report for me to hear, because everything that we've said up until this point has always been doom and gloom in reference to it. And are you sure that a lot of folks understand that? Because I think that there are a large...
Well, it's still people, because just like you didn't know, imagine how many other people don't know. Imagine how, man, we still got people stuck. If you don't have in contact
and know about the disease and discuss it, and et cetera, there's no way that you might know it, and you might have some information from long back, and that information no longer applies. Is that...
That is correct. That's a good statement. The thing is now, early detection and early treatment. The sooner we can get them detected, as soon as we can detect the disease, the sooner we can get them into a treatment. That's the key. That is the key to ending this epidemic.
Well, Mr. Crowder, let me say, we've got about a minute and a half to go here. And I can say one thing, that the way you've been working with it and the efforts on the part of your organization, Steet-works, I think we can say that in Nashville, I'm not sure about what it means in other places, but in Nashville, I think that you played a very significant role in helping to move people toward where we stand now. You and Nashville Cares and a couple of other organizations, Miss Morley's organization, and the Women with AIDS, and et cetera.
The First Response Center.
Okay.
Reverend Ed Sanders.
Ed Sanders, certainly. And I think that all of you played such an excellent role in terms of not only making us aware of it, but being out there, and I know you've had fairs, and you